loyalists will use to apply to the people who call themselves the patriots. So to be a rebel means that you are rejecting the legitimate authority of your sovereign, King George III of the British Empire.
That we are divorced is to me very clear. The only question is concerning the proper time for making an explicit declaration in words. Some people must have time to look around them, before, behind, on the right hand and on the left, then to think, and after all this, to resolve. Others see at one intuitive glance into the past and the future, and judge with precision at once. But remember, you can't make 13 clocks strike precisely alike at the same second. John Adams.
That kept the British caged in Boston. They were united in their anger at the Redcoats, but very little else. They were militiamen, not professional soldiers, expected to meet immediate crises, not take part in prolonged campaigns. Few had uniforms. Many had never been more than 50 miles from home. Their first loyalty was to the towns from which they came, and the neighbors whom they had elected as their officers. Once the shooting stopped, and it became clear that the British were not going to attack them, they began drifting home to plant their crops. In overall charge of this dwindling, disorganized force was General Artemus Ward, the commander of the Massachusetts militia. From his headquarters in Cambridge, he understood that if there were to be any hope of holding their own against the British, he needed a paid, recruited army, and he needed it fast.
Wherever you go, we will be by your sides. Our bones shall lie with yours. We are determined never to be at peace with the Redcoats, while they're at
The idea of independency. I find common sense is working a wonderful change in the minds of many men. George Washington. Not all minds were changed. Hannah Griffiths, the Philadelphia poet who in 1768 had urged American women to boycott British goods, was horrified.
The idea that to reform the empire by not buying tea or imported cloth would lead to this crazy question of independence was an impossible thing for her to countenance. Pain is where a lot of people get on the revolutionary road. It's where she gets off.
For some Americans, common sense confirmed their worst fears. Vermont loyalist John Peters, who continued to receive death threats from his patriot neighbors, had reached a breaking point.
Often mobbed and once imprisoned by the malcontents, I quitted my family, property, and offices and fled to Canada to avoid personal danger and to support the British cause against its enemies.
The want of guns is so great that no trouble or expense must be spared to obtain them. Slave uprisings, and reports that the governor of Canada had enlisted native people to resist the invasion there further inflamed Congress. In the 18th and final charge against the king, Jefferson did all he could to exploit their fury.
He has excited domestic insurrections amongst us, and has endeavored to bring on the inhabitants of our frontiers, the merciless Indian savages, whose known rule of warfare is an undistinguished destruction of all ages, sexes, and conditions.
Proclaiming the equality of all men was a genuinely revolutionary idea, but that equality was not yet extended to Native Americans, enslaved or free blacks, the poor, or anyone. Jefferson's original list of injuries had also included the charge that George III was somehow responsible for the Atlantic slave trade. He called it cruel war against human nature itself. The other delegates refused to adopt that charge. The Declaration of Independence was formally ratified on July 4th, 1776. Just 1,337 words that ended with the phrase, "We mutually pledge to each other our lives."
All right, well, at least this time I made it without sleeping. So we'll start another video. Thanks, everyone.